number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 300. How about that? Number 300. This is a weekly show, so when you do the math, we're very close, or we're closer to 6 years of doing this show. We did miss, I think, 4 weeks in that time span, as crazy as that might sound. And I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but maybe a little bit after 6 years of trying to be consistent. Even this week, I'm battling a little stomach bug thingy that's knocking me for a loop, but the show must go on, and we got it done. And another house cleaning, too. You know, we went to these double episodes. This is part 2 with Graig Miller of Midlife Cards to shorten them at the recommendation of the listeners. I got 3, 4, 5 messages requesting that. It had been something I had already been pondering, and so those messages, you know, convinced me it was time to do such. And you know, probably should have did it sooner, because a friend of mine screenshotted the Apple Hobby podcast list, and you know, our downloads have went up since making them shorter. The people have spoken. So that's good. But my friend screenshotted me the Apple podcast charts. I'm full disclosure, I care, but I don't pay a ton of attention to it. But he screenshotted it, and we were number 12 overall. And at one point, I believe the first hobby podcast listed there. It fluctuates, so it depending on what times you look and that sort of thing. But definitely increased downloads, and thanks everybody out there for, you know, let me know what you want rather than just maybe disconnecting and not listening, right? You stuck with us. You gave us suggestions, and thank you, and we appreciate it. So with that being said, 30-second break, and we're back with part 2 from Graig Miller of Midlife Cards.
Hobby News Daily is your homepage of the hobby, providing original writing, exclusive gem rate data, a daily morning minute podcast, and some of the best content creators in the hobby. Remember, hobbynewsdaily.com and at Hobby News Daily on social. Happy collecting!
Hey everyone, welcome to the conclusion of our conversation with Graig Miller of Midlife Cards. The one thing I noticed, you know, and it's just par for the course with the hobby, with more people in the hobby, you know, the food court became a trade night during the show, even though there were signs that said, you know, these tables are for food consumption only. It's hard to police that, but you know, downstairs, I don't know if you got downstairs much. That was a trade night. The one thing, maybe I'm sort of projecting myself too much, Greg, starting in 1979 with that 79 Topps pack as a 7-year-old. The one thing I picked up, and I don't want to make it like I just realized this at the Cleveland National, but it really set in even more so, is seeing some of these trades and deals and these younger folks, not just younger folks, but, you know, predominantly younger folks. Now, when you're my age, almost everyone is younger folks, so that's a pretty broad brush. But like, I'm seeing less attachment to the cards. You know, I don't know about you. You know, I acquire a card. Like, I'm a show dealer too. Like, I have a show inventory, and I have all this stuff that's here that never makes it to my show. But I wasn't staring, or I wasn't involved, but I kind of picked up on stuff and watched some stuff. And it felt like there was just no personality to the cards. They were just, hey, this is worth $1,500. I'll give you this and this. And, you know, I heard one young man say, I just acquired that an hour ago, and he dealt it again. Like, he didn't even have it like an hour. And I guess I say to myself, and I'll get your take on it, I'm glad I kind of grew up in the hobby era I did, because I feel like, you know, if this is old man on the porch, then it is. I feel like I have a greater appreciation. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't care what the cards are worth, or I got a deal on that, or I paid because I had to have that. But there's more. It seems like there's more of attachment. There's more of a story. Where in watching some of these trades and transactions, they're like pawns on a chessboard, and it sort of bothers me. It's none of my business per se, other than being a talking head in the hobby. Is that something that you pick up on? Does it bother you, or do you say it is what it is?
I completely agree with you. I think that you're spot on. It doesn't bother me because I don't actually think I'm in the same hobby as those people. My hobby is collecting sports cards. I collect basketball, football, baseball cards. I collect cards. These people, the hobby that they have is not actually cards. The hobby is flipping, and the medium that they use are cards. And so it's a completely different thing. And it's my students ask me, I'm a high school teacher, and they ask me, and I teach personal finance. They ask me about cryptocurrency. They ask me about Bitcoin. And they're like, what do you think about Bitcoin? And I'm like, I am not a buyer of Bitcoin personally. I'm old school where I research a company I believe in that I think is headed in a good direction. I then investigate the company and the decisions that they've made. I look at the long-term trajectory. I look at their past. I look at the things that they're doing, and then I make a decision. So I might go, if I'm a Midwest guy who's all about Ford, I buy Ford because I believe in Ford, and I'm going to invest in Ford because Ford is my company. And that's not how younger generations are right now. They're about, you hear these channels and they always say, keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. As soon as it comes in, it's for sale, and they're trying to keep it moving. I think it's Roth cards. I'm not sure. I watch his channel because I find it interesting. But Roth cards, didn't he used to do sneakers before he did cards? And
Yeah.
his medium then was sneakers. It wasn't that he was a sneaker guy. It's that he was a flipper, and the medium was sneakers, and now the medium are cards. So I don't really consider those people to be in the same hobby as me. They're at the same locations as me. They buy some of the same things that I buy, but they're not card collectors. They're flippers. Now, there are card collectors who buy modern cards, but a lot of the guys that I think that you're referring to, they look at it as an investment. They look at it as a hot potato. They don't want, it's like the musical chairs. You don't want to be the guy left without a chair. So you got to move it quickly before, you run out of time. And that's not what I do. What I do is I like the history of the game. I like knowing that I have a baseball card of Jackie Robinson. And what Jackie Robinson, just saying that right now, I just got goosebumps. Like Jackie Robinson, what he did for our country. I say to my kids, did you guys learn about Jackie Robinson? They're like, oh, yeah, like they have reverence for Jackie Robinson. I have a Jackie Robinson card. I have a Ted Williams cards where, he was a war hero and probably the best hitter of all time and a pretty darn decent person. And so, I want those sorts of things. And I like learning about the history, not just of the player, but of the set, of the issue, of the card itself. And that is part of the fun for me. And the kids that are buying, the animal print refractor out of 5 with Joe Burrow, it's not about Joe Burrow in most cases, but for some of them it is. Some of them are card collectors, and some of those are flippers. So yeah. It sometimes bugs me that they're using what I love as their medium to try to make 10%, and make a few bucks. It kind of bugs me a little bit, but I just don't really associate them as the same hobby that you and I are participating in.
Yeah, it's a great point, and maybe I got to get to that point. I guess I try. It's the old adage, right? You try to save everyone, and that's a little dramatic, and I don't mean it exactly like it sounds, but everyone can't. I guess you grow up in a certain way, and I feel like they're missing out, like you said, the history of sports and what people meant to society and different things like that. I feel like they're missing that, but they don't want to learn that. Like if they wanted to learn that, they'd be doing that. So like you said, they're in a different genre, if you will. or niche of the hobby that maybe me and you don't partake in. And I probably shouldn't let it bother me, but when it's in your face and you see it, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it hits home. And like, I just say, man, I'm glad while it makes me older today, I'm also glad I grew up in the age of the hobby that I did, because I got to enjoy it for, I don't know, this might be a strong statement, but for the right reason. Not that they're wrong, but, or for different reasons that I still hold valuable today. Many of what you just spoke very poetically about, right? It's more than the cardboard. It's about that person, serving his country, that person breaking down societal barriers and making
Mhm.
people think differently. And then on top of that, the great athletes they were in addition to that. I guess I wish more people appreciated it for those kind of reasons, but it is what it is. And you kind of I like how you said it, right? We're in the same location. We might be in the same building, but we're doing things differently.
It's a
So I
completely
guess,
different hobby. Yeah.
yeah, I need to really. I'm gonna next time I kind of get peeved.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hear your voice in my head, Greg, and I'm gonna feel better. I'm gonna feel like, okay,
Shoot me a
that's the
text and
voice
say,
of.
Greg, what was it that she said about this? And I'll fire it back, and then you'll go, that's right. All right, cool.
Yeah, no doubt. But it's well said, and it's I probably need to think more, along those lines. We've seen even the grading field change. With collectors acquiring SGC. I'm an SGC and PSA guy, truth be told. So I that didn't bother me, that acquisition. My fear was a Fanatics or something buying an SGC, which allegedly was on the table, or they had attempted to. It obviously didn't happen. I thought that would have been a huge conflict of interest. I'm a bulk subber for SGC. They sponsor this podcast we're on right now. That would have been, and I've said this to them directly, so this is not me saying it now and them hearing it and saying, wow, I never heard John. That would have been, had that happened, Greg, that would have been a deal breaker for me, being a conflict of interest. I wouldn't
Mhm.
have sent my cards there, and I wouldn't have taken anyone else's cards to bulk sub to them had Fanatics acquired SGC. But with collectors, they're arguably, well, not arguably, really, they are the number one and two grading card companies in the industry. I think, at least for the immediate impact, I think it's going to be a good thing. Your take on that, as someone, I'm a little biased with the whole SGC thing. So, what's your assessment of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bummed out that collectors acquired SGC. I'm bummed out because I always saw SGC as sort of like the mom and pop coffee shop that you go down and they say hi and they know your name, and they make your drink before you even order because they know you. And then PSA is like, Starbucks or something. And I really, really like Peter. I'd love to have Peter on my channel. I went by the SGC booth a couple of times hoping he'd be hanging out. I wanted to say hello to him. And so I was bummed out. And then what happens is when they go under the same umbrella under collectors, then I feel like, we all start putting our tinfoil hats on about, well, what's really happening? Why have they been doing on-site grading the last couple of years at the National, but this year they suddenly weren't? And how come PSA was in one corner of the building and the furthest point away is where SGC was? If they're the same, under the same umbrella, why shouldn't they be next to each other? Because they're cousins. They're not, rivals. And so, the whole thing, the part that I think bugs me is I'm just bummed out that that's how it played out. I've sent into both. I own cards of both. For years and years and years, I was only PSA. And then finally, about a year and a half ago, I broke down and started collecting SGC as well because I think they do a good job. But also, I wanted to submit to them because I don't want to wait for 4 months to get my cards and pay twice as much. I think they do a great job. And so, And again, I feel like Peter was absolutely killing it in the PR contest. Is he was out and about, he was doing interviews, he was doing this kind of thing. And Nat Turner goes on from time to time, and he does some interviews, but he's collectors. He's not the PSA guy. I know PSA is a big part of collectors, but it's PSA. It's not. So I don't know. I was bummed out. I guess I'll just keep going back to that. What will happen in the long term? I don't know. I think that SGC is doing a great job. I hope that they don't start to have enough of self cannibalization that they start to change things from how they're going right now. When I see things like, I'm sure you saw Chris Sewell's video where he cracked a bunch of cards from PSA and then submitted them to SGC, and the grades came back different. And then, Mike Moynihan had a video where he had a bunch of cards that came back as altered or trimmed or whatever, and then they got slabbed by SGC. And then that makes me go, well, what's going on? What is real? Is SGC too lenient, or is PSA too strict, or does this company not know what they're doing, or this company not know what they're doing? But if I'm Nat Turner and I see those two videos, I am not happy that I've got people submitting cards coming back as trimmed, going into another company that I own, and that coming back holdered in good grades. It just makes you go, well, what in the heck is going on? I don't know what to think anymore. But I wouldn't have thought that so much if they weren't under the same company, because I would say, well, this person's wrong. They're wrong. But if they're sharing some technologies, and I don't know what to think anymore. So as a whole,
Yeah.
I submit to both. I buy both. I think both have some things they do well and some things that they don't do well. And I'm bummed out that they're under the same umbrella, because I feel like at the end of the day, I just have a tinfoil hat on all the time when it comes to grading now.
Yeah, some great points there, Greg, to unpack. I agree with you. Mentioned the videos where cards that were graded one way were graded differently by the other company, and graded, right? And actually graded and slabbed. And it is a head scratcher, and it's disappointing to see. I'm not going to stick up for him. I've talked to Peter, and I said, listen, I'm not going to be a shill. Like if I don't like something, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to use tact and be respectful. But so I agree with you. I think my relief, if you're asking me, would I've rather SGC been a standalone company? 100%. I think my relief came from my fear was it was going to be Fanatics acquiring them. So it's like the lesser of two evils, if you will. Again, I would rather SGC be standalone like they were. That's changed. But I was so afraid of the Fanatics acquisition that I've sort of conceded the Collectors acquisition, and maybe a little bit less disappointed than you are. Again, would I rather they stayed their own entity? 100%, 110%, which is impossible. But you get the gist, right? But that being said, I rather the outcome of that than what I was worried about happening. And you're a smart guy, like you said. You're into economics, and people as a bulk subber, it's one of the first questions all my bulk subbers ask me. God, what does this mean? And I'm like, for right now, it means status quo. But 2 to 3 years, I can't promise you that. Neither can they. And you know how these deals go, right? There's going to be a handshake or a written agreement, like a couple years, no major changes, and then 2-3 years in, right? All bets, the seatbelts come off, and different things can happen. What those are, we could do a whole show and speculate what those things might be. Maybe some people won't be there in positions that they are in now. Maybe a grading scale is going to be adopted one way or the other and become uniform. One thing I got asked was and it's a great question, right? Guys subbing 40 cards with me, like in 3 years, what if SGC doesn't exist anymore? And I have all these slabs, like that's a concern of mine. I looked him in his face. I told him, I can't tell you at 100% that's not going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think now if you're putting a gun in my head and asking me to give my opinion, I don't think they're not going to exist anymore, but might they exist in a different fashion? That's more likely that than not exist at all. So,
well, here's another thing for me,
yeah.
is Peter was out and about a lot, and Peter was doing a lot of interviews, and he was talking very freely. And as soon as the acquisition happened, a lot of that stopped. He's still, you see him a little bit, but not like he was. He was very active in a lot of different social medias. And if he were to come on, it's like, say he came on my show, there are certain questions that I would want to ask him that now I don't even know what the point of asking would be, because I know that his parent company is the quote unquote competition. And so he can't say something about them that he definitely would have said 2 years ago. He definitely would have said
And
1 year
did, and
ago
did,
and
and
did.
did.
And now he can't. So that's the hard part. It's like what I more than having him on my show, I would prefer to just say, this would never happen, but I'd love to have him over in my backyard, sit out on the back, have a drink together, eat a steak together, and just say, all right, you can erase my memory as soon as this conversation's over, but what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And, and that's where the tinfoil hat comes in, is because it's like, I keep saying, to myself, could they really not do on-site grading? I know they gave an excuse, but could they really not do it this year? Or were they told they couldn't? Were they told they couldn't? Or was that really the company's decision? Because they killed it last year at on-site grading. And to turn that away and to have an opportunity to, have a bunch of people submit to, I don't know. And you can't even ask. If you say, Peter, so be honest with me, what's the real reason you didn't do on-site grading? He would go back to the line. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him because he has to. But we don't really know. So we can only kind of speculate as to what's really going on.
I did, and listen, he didn't tell me this was off the record. So I did get to talk to him, not live mic, but just talking to him there. And the answer I got to that, Greg, was that their turnaround time is back to that they'll say 5 to 10. I'll tell you it's 10 to 12 days. And so his thing was, and I agree partially. Let me preface that. But his thing is, when they on-site grade, it costs them quite a bit more to bring that equipment. More graders have to make the trip. It's obviously more hotel rooms. They have to have the space for the grading equipment and the encapsulation equipment. He gave me a number. I'm not going to share the number. I shared I'll paraphrase what he told me. It's a lot more expensive to do on-site grading than not do on-site grading. And his explanation was this: if their turnaround time wasn't so short to begin with, they probably would have been more apt to do it. But the fact that he can look someone in the face and say, we're going to take this back to Boca Raton, and you're probably going to have it the week to 10 days after anyway, for $15. We couldn't justify the astronomical added expense. I think that's partially true, but I also get what you're saying. Maybe there was an assertion from someone else that you're not doing.
And I like Peter so much that I have to just trust what he's saying with that. If for some reason at some point there was going to be a merge of the two, which I used to think that was going to happen for sure. I'm now not really sure. I think that Peter should be the guy who runs it. I mean, he's that good. He's really good. And he's a really good guy. And
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Whether that comes to be, that's where I'm at. Is like, let's, when people ask me like these million questions, is Peter going to survive? Is SGC going to survive? Is the grading scale going to change? Are the prices going to go up? These are all the questions. I'm forgetting some. Those are just
Sure.
off the top of my head. Something's going to, like, there's going to be answers to those questions, and they're not, where I'm going. They're not all going to be good ones, right? There's no way. That's not how this works. I'm not, for me to look someone in their face or in their eyes and tell them like, oh, nothing's going to change ever. It's going to just be like they never acquired them. That's not how these business deals work. People don't fork over millions of dollars to not change anything.
You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
We are back.
If I had one question
go
for
ahead.
Peter, one question. I saw him in an interview, and I believe it was Mike Moynihan who interviewed him at the 2023 National. He said, "We have our registry we're just finishing it up. We're almost there. You're gonna see it very, very soon." And here we are, 13 months later, and there's no SGC registry. Now, when you tell me that you are going to be independent, operating independently still, they're still PSA like they've always been, we're SGC like we've always been, and the only thing that's changed in those 13 months is collectors acquired SGC. Where's that registry that was almost ready 13 months ago? So what's the story? That would be the one question if I could ask him one.
Well, I'm going to do my best, Peter Steinberg. I can't do the voice. I think what he'd say, and again, I'm not speaking for him. I didn't get the answer to this question. I did get the answer to why they did on-site grading. This is me just going off on my own riff and spitballing. I think, who's to say, right? Let's be honest, right? I don't, they sponsor the show, but I'll be honest. Who's to say maybe part of that acquisition was to prevent that registry from ever seeing the light of day, right? Let's keep it real, right? Yeah. Or there's the other side of the coin, depending on which side you believe more, that says that now there might be just I'll say universal. Universal to me means every major significant grading card company registry, but maybe you'll see sort of a updated combined one. I probably tend to believe the first thing I said over the second thing, truth be told, but that's the two. I think it's one of those two, right? Whatever
Nat
camp
has said several times that the bread and butter, of PSA is the registry. And then you have Peter say that their registry is almost done. And then you have it not happen and a purchase happen in that same time period. So,
that might be. It might be the first thing I said, right? Let's be real, right? I'm just, I'm not, I always try to keep it real. I'm not going to stop tonight, right? So, it might be the former rather than the latter. I hope not. But let's, we've got to look at all the angles, and that's a legitimate reason to pay some money, so that doesn't happen, and so you can hang your hat on the peg that you're the only one that has one, right? It's you become a pop one of registry companies. So maybe that is the case. I don't want to say we'll never know, but I don't think we're going to know right away. Let's put it that way. But it's an interesting thought, and I thought about it too. It's funny you mentioned that. It's something I've thought about as well. But that's a question too. You're not going to get you're going to get a lot of like coach speak and not really get much of anything juicy. So it's one of those questions. I don't have a problem asking it, but I know I'm going to be in the same boat after the question's answered that I was before. So, time will tell. I think with that whole thing, kind of just putting a bow tie on it, I think you'll agree too. It'll be in the second or third year where we see shoes dropping and different things occurring that we're not seeing at this time. And what those are, we could play bingo and have a board and see who wins. But it's going to be interesting. Next year and then 2026 with that. And who's to say, right? Collectors has a knack. Here's another angle, not to throw another. Collectors has a knack for buying something and then selling it. So who's to say they don't sell SGC to another? Again, I hope it's not Fanatics, because that's a deal breaker for me. I said that from day one. So I hope that isn't the case. If that's something there. All right, enough about rich guys and rich companies, right? You've done your YouTube channel. It's grown exponentially very quickly. I attested to the person you are. You speak from the heart. You don't mince words. You're very sincere, and it's not a shtick. And I think that goes a long way. Has your growth of your channel, has it surprised you or not necessarily?
Oh, it's completely surprised me. I mean, I never started a channel for my channel to get big, and to say that my channel's big. I mean, I have 5,500 subscribers to my YouTube channel, and that's where I direct 98% of my effort. I'm on Instagram. I have a Twitter account. I have a TikTok account, but 98% is on YouTube. And the reason is because I like that interface for interacting with people. And the whole point of the channel was I didn't really feel like there was a place for a lot of us to communicate about cards. And I've said before, I think collecting cards can be kind of an isolating hobby. It can be kind of independent. A lot of it you're on your own. A lot of it you're sorting, you're planning, you're researching, and there are some of us in the hobby that want to do it with other people, because when you pick up a big card and you share it with a couple of people and they're super excited, like that joy that you get from that makes it so much more fun. And so the whole point of my channel was I'm going to throw out thoughts and ideas and questions and see what do other people think, and to this day, every single comment I've ever received, I have given a written response to. And if I didn't give a written response, it's because it got caught in a filter somewhere and I never saw it. But every single comment, because that was always the point. I throw out a question, I throw out a topic. I want to hear what other people have to say. And other people have influenced my collecting a lot, because they've said things and they've shared ideas and sets and collection topics that have made me go, yeah, I agree. I like that too. And it's made it way more fun. And so I think that maybe there was just a little bit of an opening where a lot of people show cards. There are people who know 100 times more than me. John Mangini knows 100 times more than me about different sets. 100 times. Dave Blue Jacket does. Rick's Vintage Oddball Cards does. Those guys know so much more than me. And watching their channel is like literally watching a professor talk, at UC Berkeley about chemistry. It's like, it's intense and they know a crazy amount. And what I am is more of a facilitator. I'm more of the guy who just facilitates the discussion instead of the guy who's giving information that's necessarily worthy of, remembering and then executing. And so I think that people like to have a place that they can share their love of this hobby with someone else who genuinely loves this hobby. And that's what I've tried to become. And everything that I do revolves around that. I have every week, I have a Q&A where people can ask me questions and I give my opinion. It really should be Q&O because it's not an answer. It's just an opinion. Every week I do a question to my audience and ask them to respond in the comments. And then the following week, I feature a lot of the comments and I talk about my take on their comments and why I thought they were good ones. Every month, I have people, I offer the invitation for people to submit their favorite pickup for the month. And I do a monthly showcase of all the cards that people in the community pick up. Last month we had like 125 people submit their pickup and we looked at them together, and you get to participate instead of being a student who sits and writes down notes and then goes home and memorizes. You're actually a participant in the channel. It's not
interactive.
It's interactive. And
people
that's
love this. People love that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not even a hobby thing, Craig. It's just in general. But go ahead.
As a teacher, every day I get up in front of my students, and we could do it a couple of ways. We could have me get up there and talk, and then write down stuff, and then memorize stuff, and then them regurgitate it on a multiple choice Scantron test. Or I can say, when we're talking about, budgeting, I can talk to them and say, hey, what do you think one of your bills are going to be when you move out here in a couple of years? What do you think that bill is going to cost? And get their responses and then let their eyes open when you see the reality of some of the things that they took for granted, and then they remember it better. So I try to make my classroom interactive, and this is just another place where we get to interact. And I genuinely am learning as much from everybody else as they might pick up from me. And so I'm really the facilitator of the channel. It's not Graig on a soapbox, professing beliefs and things that people need to know. And that's why I think that people have caught on to it, is they like being a participant and sharing their thoughts and their opinions and their pickups.
Yeah, I heard someone else, not in the hobby, but talking about content creation, and you said the word, right? They used the quote like, with content creation, you can be a show can make you a participant or a hostage, right? And it's a little extreme, especially in today's day and age. But the point was, right, more people are going to want to have their voice be heard and have the host highlight something to them or ask them their opinion, as you pointed out with what you do. I think people appreciate that. And I think that's why it's one of the things I love. I need to do, quite frankly, a better job of that.
But you do. You guys, when you do your live streams, you have participants. You have the chat.
We do. I'm just saying we got to do. I think I could do. I could even do a little bit more, even with this podcast, Craig, on that level, more than I do now. And that's the thing. This is the 6th year of the show, or almost the 6th year. Sometimes, and I think it happens to more than just me. Sometimes you get, I don't want to say stuck in the mud, but that's the way we've always done it. And that's not an answer. That's not necessarily a correct answer. And the show is different today than it was 5.5 years ago, or even 2 years ago. But I need to do a little bit more focus on that and take a little bit of a page out of your book as well, because I think it's fun, right? And that's what this hobby's supposed to be. And regardless of how many years or years I have or haven't been doing it, right? Like you said, I'm learning. I don't know everything. I'm learning something every day, as I should. And I always say, the minute I stop learning about the hobby, I stop caring, or I don't care anymore. And that'll be a nice cue for me to might be time to hang up the card, so to speak. So that's not going to happen as far as I'm concerned. But you're an inspiration in that terms of I can be better and I need to be better, regardless of one show is different than the other, but we can do it more across the board. So hats off to you. I love what you do. Speaking of that, and we'll kind of give out where people can find that interactive hobby content. So any socials you want to share, all that good stuff, take your time.
All right. Well, I mean, again, most of my efforts go to my YouTube channel, which is Midlife Cards. Midlife Sports Cards is the technical name, but if you're looking for the tag, everything, every social media, Facebook, Midlife Cards, YouTube, Midlife Cards, Instagram, Twitter. I don't check Twitter very much. I don't check Facebook very much.
You know how I know you don't check Twitter very much? It's called
Oh,
X. And don't feel
oh
bad.
yeah,
I
yeah.
still do that. I still call it Twitter too. I'm just
Yeah,
busting your time.
yeah, and it's so, but this is the platform, this is the medium because it, again, as a teacher, the way that I think people learn, in the way that people communicate best, is not just through words like Facebook does or like X does. It's not just pictures like Instagram. It's not just video like TikTok. It's comments, it's written stuff, it's words, it's our seeing my body language, and it's this is the best platform, YouTube, for me. And that's one of the reasons I don't just do it as a podcast and I do it on YouTube, is because I want people to see me, because I think when you see my eyebrows raise and you can see my excitement in my face and my hands get fire, going, it's the best form of communication for me. And so, but that's the place to find me, and hey, I am meeting new people every day. You and I spoke for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and now we're speaking again. And I had a blast both times we've talked. And so this has just been an amazing way for me to connect with other people. And I'm just absolutely thrilled with how many friends I've made from this. I text friends and call friends all day long through this YouTube thing that started, about 20 months ago. So
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, with me, I do a little less YouTube, a lot less YouTube than you, because I have a face for not you, is what I tell people. So that's one of the reasons. But no, all kidding aside, you're doing a terrific job, and I enjoy it as many others. And and I'll have you back on. There's a couple of things we didn't even get to today. So it gives me, as long as you come back, it gives you a reason to get you back on the pod.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. I have a ton of respect for the platforms that you have, but more than anything, your positivity of the hobby, but also the fact that you really emphasize the history and the meaning behind the hobby, instead of just, like we were talking about earlier, easy come, easy go, the hot potato game. I love your reverence for the history of not just the games that we collect, but also the cards and the companies, and to me, that's what it's all about. So I appreciate everything that you do, and it was honored to come on today, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Well, coming from you, I really do appreciate that, Greg. I'll just wrap it up like this. Like, we wouldn't be, like, if you like where we are today, if you're in the hobby and enjoying the hobby today, that's my emphasis, is like, we can enjoy the moment, but let's try to remember, how do we get to point B, right? There has to be a point A. And so whether it be, like you said, I love how you said companies and players and everything that has to happen to get to where we are today. I guess that's why it bothers me, maybe more than it should, when I don't see other people sort of appreciate it. It's the old man I'll be the old man on the there, and I'll be proud of it. I guess I am.
Yeah.
I have a porch, and I am an old man, so it's not completely off base. But Greg, we'll have you back. I'd love to have you back on, and chop up the hobby some more. And I had a blast. So thank you.
I did too. Thank you, my friend.
That was really a blast, I believe, for both of us, as you heard. But really good guy, Greg Miller, and we'll have him, as long as he'll come back, we'll have him on again. We really, it was fun, even though it was the first time we've talked, is recording-wise, it didn't feel that way to me. I can't speak for him, but for myself, it felt like I've known him for years when I honestly haven't. So that was real fun. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. All right, now for our Hobbies the People announcer, some closing thoughts, and we'll wrap this week's episode up.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
This is Zach Byrne, one of many hobbyists who returned during COVID. Thanks to John for steering me in the right direction. And remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
That's a wrap for this week. Huge thanks to you, the listeners out there, because without you, there is no us. If you like the show, we truly appreciate positive reviews. Big ups to our great guests who drive the show and our awesome sponsors who make it all possible. Sports Card Nation will be back next week, but don't forget to catch either Hobby Quick Hits or Card Mentions coming up on Monday. I'll leave you with this. How do we change the world? One random act of kindness at a time. Remember, the hobby is the people.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.